Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of textual study of the Quran. Today we will begin by verse 56 of Surah An'am. This is the second surah. In fact, this is the first surah of the second chapter. The second chapter of the Quran has begun with this surah, and we have discussed this earlier on, that two surahs of this chapter are Meccan and two of them are Medinan. So Surah An'am and its counterpart Surah Araf, they are Meccan surahs, and Surah Anfal and Tawbah, the last two surahs of this chapter, they are Medinan surahs. In Surah An'am, the surah that we are studying, the address is towards the Quraysh, and they are being told and divulged a lot of information regarding the misconceptions that they had regarding one God, and they are being told that as far as God is concerned, this is something that is found in their own intuition, the conception of one God, and if they are associating partners with Him, then they are distorting their own nature. So, in this regard, we begin with verse 56 with the words, قُلْ إِنِّي نُهِيتُ أَنْ أَعْبُدَ الَّذِينَ تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ قُلْ لَا أَتَّبِعُ أَهْوَاءَكُمْ قَدْ ضَلَلْتُ إِذًا وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُهْتَدِينَ. O Prophet, say, I have been stopped from worshipping those whom you invoke besides God. Say, I cannot follow your desires. If I did this, I would be straying and not remaining among those on the right path. Ustaz Ghamidi has clarified that the word qul, the Arabic word qul, which means to say, it's like an imperative verb, occurs frequently. It occurs frequently in this verse, of course, and also in the verses ahead. And it is evident that all these statements have been given in response to the doubts and objections that were raised by the addressees. So clearly, this is something that has to be noted. And as far as this text is concerned, that I have been stopped from worshipping those whom you invoke, that actually means that invoke those people or those deities or those partners for supplication and mercy. So what is said earlier on positively is repeated here in negative terms. The testimony of God that has been revealed to the Prophet in the form of the Quran is that the creator of the heavens and the earth is the one and only God. Only He is found in our own intuition, and anyone else that people associate, the Quran says that it's a clear fabrication, and there had been more than one God, or God had partners, He would have been the first to divulge this information. And because He has not done so, so people are fabricating a lie and imposing something on God which He has never said, and this is something which is unforgivable. So the word that you can see which is used here, La attabi'u ahwa'akum, that I cannot follow your desires. So ahwa actually refers to those polytheistic innovations, the bid'at, as you see. And God has pointed out that this is absolutely baseless, that there is no evidence of their deities being partners of God, neither in human intellect or nature, nor in the book of God. Their fancies have concocted them, and since their rather vague intercession has made them shirk all the responsibilities related to faith and deeds in the hereafter, so they like them a lot. They may like them, but there is a great difference between reality and whims. Reality and facts. Of course, they are telling. It is not possible for the Prophet to disregard reality and follow their false desires, evil wishes, and absolutely baseless innovations. This, of course, is not possible. And then it is said, قُلْ إِنِّي عَلَى بَيِّنَةٍ مِّن رَبِّي وَكَذَّبْتُمْ بِهِ مَا عِنْدِي مَا تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ بِهِ إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ يَقُصُّ الْحَقَّ وَهُوَ خَيْرُ الْفَاصِلِينَ. Which means, say, I am on a radiant argument from my Lord, and you have denied it. I have no power over you, over what you are insisting to hasten. Its decision rests with God only. He alone shall explain the truth, and He is the best of judges. So, the thing which is once again repeated here is that the Quran, which fully explains the essence of monotheism, is what is being implied and insinuated by the words Inni ala bayyinatin min rabbi, that I am on a radiant argument, referring to the fact that I have been given this outstanding miracle of God, in which the truth has been enshrined and entrenched in a way that it comes from the heart, and it penetrates the heart of the addressees if they have a discerning mind and a striving soul. So what has been said here is that ma indi ma tastajiluna bihi, that I do not have what you are hastening. It's not for me. I do not have the authority to bring about what you are inquiring or what you are hastening. It is in al hukmu illa lillah. It is something that rests with God. And before that, it is said that I have no power over what you are insisting to hasten. And then before that, it is said that I am on a radiant argument from your Lord, and you have denied it. Kazzabtum bihi. Now, the antecedent of the pronoun is the bayana that has been translated as radiant argument in this passage. So we have to understand that this is what the Quran has clearly said, that you are denying something which is absolutely evident. It is as clear and as radiant and as dazzling as the midday sun. You just need to open your eyes. If you insist to keep them shut, then of course there is no remedy for this. You just need to open your eyes to catch what the truth is. Kul law anna indi ma tasta'jiluna bihi laqudhiya al-amru bayni wa baynakum wallahu a'lamu bil-zalimin wa 'indahu mafatihul ghaib la ya'lamuha illa hu wa ya'lamu ma fil barri wal bahr wa ma tasqutu min waraqatin illa ya'lamuha wa la habbatin fi zulumatil ard wa la ratbin wa la yabisin illa fi kitabim mubin. So say, had I the power to bring what you are insisting to hasten, then this matter between me and you would have been settled. This matter is in the hands of God, and God is well aware of the unjust. So what is being said here is that had I the power, had I the authority and the control to bring that punishment that you are hastening and that you're asking for, I would have done it long ago. But because I don't have this power, I don't have the authority, it is something that God has to decide. So you have to wait, and I have to wait for the decision and the verdict to be delivered by God. And وَإِنْدَهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ, the keys of the unseen lie with Him alone, none but He knows them. So the keys through which the doors of all the unknown will be unlocked are known to Him. He knows the time. He knows when everything has to be recorded. He knows when everything has to be disclosed, and He knows when the time for the punishment is going to arrive. Because remember, God in His eternal mercy wants to give every person the last bit of chance that he deserves to be given. He or she, any person on the face of the earth would never be in this condition that they would think that they have been given no chance at all. So even if they have a small, eeny weeny glimmer of hope, the Almighty says that that hope is something that is going to be provided to these people. And that is why the Quran has been said, the Quran has said this in a very explicit way, وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ, that as far as the knowledge of things is concerned, it is in the all-embracing knowledge of God. He knows what He has with Him. The keys of the unseen lie with Him. He alone, none but He knows them. He has knowledge of all that is in the land and in the sea. Every leaf from a tree and every grain in the depth of the earth that fall are in His knowledge, and there is nothing dry or wet that is unknown to Him, and this is recorded with Him in an open book. So the all-embracing nature of God's knowledge is now described. He has all-encompassing, all-embracing knowledge. It is belief in this vastness of God's knowledge that engenders complete trust and satisfaction in a believer on the will of God. The slightest of misconceptions in this opens the door to polytheism. It is this belief which is the foundation of true, strong faith in the hereafter. And it is through its true concept and reminder that the very humility is engendered in a person which induces him to adopt the right attitude in life. So, as far as the Almighty is concerned, He has everything, He has the knowledge of everything recorded with Him, and all that He needs to do is just let people know that every single thing that they are going to do, every single thing that emanates from them, whether it's in the openness or whether it's hidden from everyone, is going to be recorded. It's going to be something that is going to be in the knowledge of God. No one should think that the smallest of deeds will remain unnoticed. Every single thing will be noted down. So that is why it is said, وَلَا حَبَّةٍ فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْأَرْضِ وَلَا رَطْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ, that every single thing is to be recorded and is being recorded. وَهُوَ الَّذِي يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ بِاللَّيْلِ وَيَعْلَمُ مَا جَرَحْتُم بِالنَّهَارِ ثُمَّ يَبْعَثُكُمْ فِيهِ لِيُقْضَى أَجَلٌ مُّسَمًّى ثم إليه مرجعكم ثم ينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. It is He who claims your souls at night and also knows what you do during the day. Then He raises you up in it so that the allotted span of life is completed. Finally, to Him is your return. Then He will tell you what you have been doing. So, as far as God is concerned, this is something which is absolutely clear and evident, that it is He who gives us the chance to live another day, and another day brings a new opportunity, new window of hope for a person, a new chance in life to do what best can be done. He has knowledge of what's going to happen at night. He has knowledge of what's going to happen during the day. And then when a person gets up during the day and then of course completes the day, and his life cycle continues like this, he is going to complete his life cycle, as the Quran says, ila ajalim liyuqza ajalum musamma, which until the term is completed, and then everyone will be returned to him and they will be informed of what they have been doing. وهو القاهر فوق عباده ويرسل عليكم حفظا حتى إذا جاء أحدكم الموت توفته رسلنا وهم لا يفرطون. He fully dominates His servants and deputes His guardians over you until when the time of death of any one of you arrives, it is only the angels sent by us who claim His soul and are never negligent in this task. So the Quran has made it very clear that as far as God is concerned, He is fully in control. He has full authority of what is going on. It is not that He is sitting aloof, as has been theorized by certain philosophers, that He created and then He set aside, He became aloof, and He actually handed over the reins of governance to others. So this is not the case. He is fully in charge. Qahiru fawqa ibadihi wa yursilu alaykum hafaza, that He actually deputes His guardians over you, who are angels, who are deputing, who have been deputed over you. They note down whatever we do and whatever we do correctly or incorrectly. And then when the time comes, it is these angels who claim the soul of every person and bring it back. And as the Quran says, وَهُمْ لَا يُفَرِّطُونَ, they are never negligent in this duty. They are dutiful to God. They do what God has asked them to do. ثُمَّ رُدُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ مَوْلَاهُمُ الْحَقِّ أَلَا لَهُمُ الْحُكْمُ وَهُوَ أَسْرَعُ الْحَاسِبِينَ. Then all of them are returned to their true Lord. Listen, all the authority to take decision rests with Him, and most swift is He in taking account. So once again, ثُمَّ رُدُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ مَوْلَاهُمُ الْحَقِّ, that every one of them are returned to their Lord, and all the authority to take decision rests with Him. And when it is said that He is the most swift in taking account, it actually means that, it actually refers to the fact that one main reason for various misconceptions people have regarding resurrection and reward and punishment on the Day of Judgment is that they do not have the true comprehension of God's knowledge. Once it was explained in the earlier verses, as you must have noted, occasion arose that life after death and accountability be reminded of. For this, a reference is given to an allegorical observation that each one of us is made to see every day. So it's like sleeping during night is something of a death that occurs to us. As you can see in the previous verse, it was said, وَهُوَ الَّذِي يَتَوَفَّاكُم بِاللَّيْلِ. It is He who gives you death by night. This actually means that it is like a rehearsal of life and afterlife being shown to us every day. It is as if we die at night and get up in the morning to remind us that this is what is going to happen, and one day we are going to sleep forever and then get up for our reckoning. And then it is said that وَهُوَ أَسْرَعُ الْحَاسِبِينَ, He is the most swift in taking account. He is not going to let you go scot-free. He is going to note everything, and He has noted down everything, and every slightest bit of information that is needed to administer perfect, unbiased justice is going to be with Him. قُلْ مَنْ يُنَجِّيكُم مِّن ظُلُمَاتِ الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ تَدْعُونَهُ تَضَرُّعًا وَخُفْيًا لَإِنْ أَنْجَانَا مِنْ هَٰذِهِ لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الشَّاكِرِينَ. Ask them, who saves you from the vast darkness of calamities in the land and sea when you are calling imploringly and in secret? If he saved us from this calamity, we shall certainly become grateful to him. So you see the words, the way they have been expressed. It says the land and the sea. It is something that encompasses everything. Wherever you are, whether you are in the land, whether you are on the sea, whether you are traveling, whether you are stationed, whether you are, in a ship, whether you are on a transport, it's like encompassing every state which in a person can be. So it says that when you call God, tadarruan wa khufya, imploringly and in secret, that if he saved us from this calamity, we shall certainly become grateful to him. What happens? Qulillahu yunajjikum minha wa min kulli karbin summa antum tushrikun. Say, it is God who saves you from this and from all calamities, yet after this you still worship idols. So when you call God in these adversities, in the whirlpools of hardships that you go through, he gives you that deliverance that you have had requested for. But once that happens, you people go back to your original ways of associating partners with him. So this is like cautioning and prodding the Quraysh and the Bani Ismail that every time that they are in need, they ask God's help, and when God helps them, they go back to their original ways. قُلْ هُوَ الْقَادِرُ عَلَىٰ أَنْ يَبْعَثَ عَلَيْكُمْ عَذَابًا مِّنْ فَوْقِكُمْ أَوْ مِنْ تَحْتِ أَرْجُلِكُمْ أَوْ يَلْبِسَكُمْ شِيَعًا وَيُذِيقَ بَعْضَكُمْ بَأْسَ بَعْضٍ. Say, he has full power to send some torment upon you from above you, or ruin you from beneath your feet. Above you or beneath your feet, or engage you in conflict after dividing you into various factions, and make you taste the power of one another. So once again it has been said that as far as God's control is concerned, it is immaculate. It is something that simply cannot be challenged. When the torment of God arrives, it'll catch people unaware, and it can come from anywhere. As it says, أَن يَبْعَثَ عَلَيْكُمْ عَذَابًا مِّن فَوْقِكُمْ. It could be from above you in the form of a storm, a tempest, something that destroys you, or it could be below your feet like an earthquake. It can shudder, it'll shudder the whole earth beneath your feet, and everything will then be totally decimated. What will happen next, of course, is that you will know the power of God. And if this does not happen, God says he can equally make you taste the power of one another by making you fight, not because he wants you to fight or he has planned you to fight, but because as a punishment you deserve this. Then by dividing into various factions, as the verse says, he makes you taste the power of one another. Again, something that you have deserved because of your bad deeds. Unzur kayfa nusarriful ayat la'allahum yafqahun. And then see how we present our revelations in various ways so that they may understand. So viewers, you can clearly see that the verses as we go along in this surah, they are so powerful, they are so tearing in their and telling in their impact. They knock at the doors and they try to keep the people who have gone asleep on their toes. The Almighty wants them to stand up, to awaken from their slumber, and at the same time remember that what they are being reminded of is not something which is unknown to them. It's not an alien concept. It's something which is very well known to them. The only thing is centuries of negligence, centuries of blindly following their forefathers with this baseless belief that how can we go against what our forefathers believed. The Quran says that this is something that's going to take you directly to the gates of hell. You have been given the intellect, you have been given the critical power to analyze and to go forth. This was something that was given to you as a big boon, but you decided to make it a bane for you, and hence this is something that will make you suffer. وَكَذَّبَ بِهِ قَوْمُكَ وَهُوَ الْحَقُّ قُلْ لَسْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ بِوَكِيلٍ لِكُلِّ نَبَإٍ مُسْتَقَرٍّ وَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ. Your people have rejected this threat of ours, O Prophet, although it is the very truth. Tell them, I have not been made a keeper over you so that I am able to make you understand at all cost. A time for everything has been fixed. لِكُلِّ نَبَإٍ مُسْتَقَرٍّ. If in spite of this you demand torment, then soon you will see, then soon you will know this truth. So the what has been stated here is that your people have rejected this threat of ours, O Prophet, and that they have done so. They'll soon see how this is going to take them to destruction. Kul lastu alaykum biwakil. Say or tell them, I have not been made a keeper over you. I just cannot force you to accept the truth. It's not upon me to grab you by the throat and consign you to what truth and righteousness are. No, it is something that you have to do by your own choice. It is something that must be done through your own will. There is no compulsion here. But you have to remember that once this time is over, once this time expires and you are before the Almighty, He will question you for your conduct. He will question you whether the truth that had reached you, did you pay heed or were you negligent? And if you think that this is something that is not going to in any way affect you, then you are grossly and gravely wrong. لِكُلِّ نَبَإٍ مُسْتَقَرٍ. If this punishment is not coming to you at this instance or this instant, it is not that it's not going to come ever, because in the calendar of God, everything has a fixed time. Everything will take place according to the time that has been allotted to it. It's not going to come a second before or delay by a second even. فَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ. And you shall soon know this. At the moment you are bragging and boasting and you think that you can make hay, but soon you'll realize that you will have nothing but regret and you have nothing but shame. But then that will be too late. وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَ الَّذِينَ يَخُوضُونَ فِي آيَاتِنَا فَأَعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ حَتَّى يَخُوضُوا فِي حَدِيثٍ غَيْرِهِ وَإِمَّا يُنْسِيَنَّكَ الشَّيْطَانُ فَلَا تَقْعُدْ بَعْدَ الذِّكْرَى مَعَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. Leave them now to themselves, and when you see people criticizing our revelations, withdraw from them until they engage in other talk. And if ever Satan makes you forget this, do not sit with these unjust people after you realize your mistake. Once again, viewers, you have to understand this, that though the address here is in the singular, as you can see, وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَ الَّذِينَ, when you see, it's in the singular. As the verses go along, it becomes evident from the succeeding verses that all Muslims are addressed. Though the verse or the address is directed towards the Prophet, it is through him that the rest of the Muslims are also receiving guidance. They are directed through the Prophet that even for the purpose of preaching, they must not sit among those people who make fun of God's religion and His Prophet. So it is like an appeal to the sense of honor which people have, the sense of honor for the religion that they are following. If people are making fun of their religion, if they are making fun of God and the Prophet, as the verse says, فَأَعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ, you should just evade them. In fact, ignore them and do not sit with them until they engage in some other conversation. And if Satan makes you forget this, it does happen at times, you don't realize, then it is, فَلَا تَقْعُدُوا بَعْدَ الذِّكْرَى. As soon as you remember that you were not allowed to sit in such a situation and such circumstances, immediately just get up from that place. فَلَا تَقْعُدُوا بَعْدَ الذِّكْرَى مَعَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ وَمَا عَلَى الَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ مِنْ حِسَابِهِمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ وَلَكِنْ ذِكْرَى لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. Those who fear God are in no way accountable for these people. However, reminding them is mandatory upon them so that they also become fearful. So you see, what has been said here is once again very, very telling and something which is very, very impactful. That وَمَا عَلَى الَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ مِنْ حِسَابِهِمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ, that people who are God conscious, they are in no way accountable for these people. So the Quran is insisting, and it says this repeatedly on many occasions, that everyone is going to be answerable for his or her own deeds. No one will be carrying the burden of other people. These deities that they are worshipping, and in the hope that they are going to let them go before God or let them go scot-free, that's not going to happen, because everyone will be held accountable singularly, solely, and that accountability is something in which no interference, nothing whatsoever will take place from any other person. Everyone will be faced with God alone, and then that reckoning is going to take place, and no one is going to be answerable for any person. وَلَكِنْ ذِكْرَى لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. And however, reminding them is mandatory upon them so that they also become fearful. Although there's not going to be accountability, but yes, what can be done is that you can remind these people, and that is what your task is. You cannot carry the burden of other people, but of course you can remind them, because you see, you never know when there is going to be a change of hearts. People can change. People can go through a metamorphosis. They can understand something strikes them. A chord might strike, something strikes their chord, and something happens, and suddenly they become changed individuals. So this can always happen, and at times miracles do happen, because it is God's way to test people. He sees how hard you do and how hard you do make your way through in these hardships and difficulties. And sometimes the reward of these hardships is a miraculous turn of events, something that you could not have imagined. That is how God works. But then we have to earn this from our own hard work and from our own persistence. وَذْرِ الَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا دِينَهُمْ لَعِبًا وَلَهْوًا وَغَرَّتْهُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا وَذَكِّرْ بِهِ أَن تُبْصَلَ نَفْسٌ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ لَيْسَ لَهَا مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ وَلِيٌّ وَلَا شَفِيعٌ. Leave aside those who treat their religion as a sport and an amusement, and who have been led into deception by the life of this world. So of course, when it is said that you leave aside or you don't sit with these people, of course it means that these are the people who in no way deserve that you, in spite of their repeated reminders, you can think they are now going to turn back, because now they are under God's scourge. Of course, reminding them is mandatory, but more than that, you have it is no prerogative of anyone that they should go beyond reminding them, because guidance and error is something which people select for their own selves. It is a choice that you have to make. So, as far as people who lead themselves into their own deception or deceitful life is concerned, we in no way can stop them, unless of course they have the heart to be stopped. So, وَذَرِ الَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا دِينَهُمْ لَعِبًا وَلَهْوًا وَغَرَّتْهُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا, that leave aside those who treat their religion as a sport and an amusement, and who have been led into deception by the life of this world. We just cannot in any way be sufficient for them. So, and what do? وَذَكِّرْ بِهِ أَن تُبْصَلَ نَفْسٌ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ, and keep reminding through the Quran, so that a person, as punishment of his misdeeds, is not consigned to destruction. أن تبصل نفس بما كسبت, and then it is said ليس لها من دون الله ولي ولا شفيع, and that too in the state that he has no helper or intercessor before God. وإن تعدل كل عدل لا يؤخذ منها أولئك الذين أبلسوا بما كسبوا لهم شراب من حميم وعذاب أليم بما كانوا يكفرون. And that too in the state that he has no helper or intercessor before God, and even if he offers every ransom, it is not accepted from him. It is these people who shall be consigned to destruction due to their misdeeds. Because of the disbelief they have been committing, they shall have boiling water and a stern punishment. So once again, you can clearly see how the Almighty has said that if people in their own willing capacity, they are not willing to listen, they have no intention of listening, then we can do nothing about them. We can pray for them, we can pray for their righteousness, but unless they themselves decide to take the right course, we just cannot force them to take the right course. لَيْسَ لَهَا مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ وَلِيٌّ وَلَا شَفِيعٌ وَإِن تَعْدِلْ كُلَّ عَدْلٍ لَا يُؤْخَذْ مِنْهَا. And if a person offers every ransom, it is not accepted from him. That's not going to work on the Day of Judgment. No amount of ransom. This ransom might have worked in this world, and this is, viewers, a sort of a slant that they earn their way by offering money in huge amounts in this world. But that money is not going to absolve them, is not going to save them on the Day of Judgment. However much ransom they would like to pay, that shall not be accepted. Ulaika allazina ublisu bima kasabu. It is these people who shall be consigned to destruction because of what they earned. And then lahum sharabum min hamim. And for them, the actual words, as you can see, that they show that their first feast will be boiling water, and then they will be consigned to a severe punishment. And we know that at other instances in the Quran, the way they'll be made to eat and drink pus and boiling water would be something that would not be able to keep them alive. Yes, it will be able to sustain them. And as the Quran has said on another occasion, La yamutu fiha wa la yahya, they will neither live nor die, which means that they will be in such a state of consternation, such a state of disturbance, that neither life nor death will be able to give them any relief. So this process is still continuing, this passage is still continuing. We'll be taking up, inshallah, the remaining verses in our next session. And if you have any questions regarding what we have studied today, please raise them. Walaikum assalam.
डॉक्टर साहब, जैसे इन आयात में कहा गया कि ऐसी जगह पर ना बैठो जहां कुरान की आयात का मजाक उड़ाया जा रहा है, तो जैसे आजकल भी ये होता है कि मतलब अब तो हर दूसरा आदमी जो है वो खुद को एथियस्ट कह रहा होता है और बहुत ही डेरोगेटरी वे में अंबिया का और शायर का मजाक उड़ा रहा होता है, या आप टॉक शो वगैरह में देखते हैं एथियस्ट की, तो उसमें उसमें हमें फिर क्या करना चाहिए कि मतलब वैसे तो उनकी दलील बहुत कमजोर होती है, बहुत वीक होती है, लेकिन क्या ऐसे लोगों को जिनको स्लिप होने का डर हो या उनको कोई चांस हो कि कहीं वो उनकी बातों में ना आ जाए, तो उनको परहेज करना चाहिए, या फिर जिनको कोई मेंटोरशिप हासिल है तो वो फिर उनसे डिस्कस करें और पूछें, क्योंकि अब तो ये जगह जगह ये चीजें हो रही है ना, तो उसमें हम इस आयत पर किस तरह अमल करेंगे थोड़ा सा?
So you see, basically we have to understand the context and the situation that we are faced with. So there are occasions in which people are making fun of the Quran and about religion, even the Prophet. But maybe in such gatherings there could be a chance in which you have the opportunity to speak to these people. So there is always this chance in which you have this opportunity. I think if that is the case, then there's no need to leave that place, because now you can have something to say. It is only when you think that it's a blatant sort of mockery that is going on, and that too without any argument or reasoning, and it's not going to give you a chance as well to maybe play your own part, that perhaps you should just leave that place, as a sense of your honor would entail it. Otherwise, I mean, you can see that there are so many occasions today that because of a lot of misconceptions, people, if they are mocking religion, they are not doing it per se. It is because of their misconception and because of the fact that they are not understanding things in the right perspective. So I think there is a difference between what was happening in the times of the Prophet. The Prophet himself was delivering the truth through, of course, the help of God, and hence people were being given no chance to in any way deny it, and they were still persisting. But today, as we can see, that this hate, this mockery, at times is because of unawareness of the people themselves, or because of being misinformed. As I said, a lot of misconceptions are there. So I think that if this is like a chain of events in which you are persistently attending some gathering, maybe in which you can get a chance to speak, that should be fine. However, if you feel that the mockery is such that people are just doing it for the sake of mockery and they have absolutely no other agenda, it's nothing to understand or to critically evaluate, then obviously it should not be the right thing to sit in such places. As I said, it's your own call. You need to understand that today's scenario is quite different from the Prophet's times, because today when people make fun, I recall what happened years ago when the cartoon controversy erupted in Denmark, when cartoons of the Prophet and of the other revered personalities were made, and people started to condemn them, and without realizing that in this situation, the cartoon controversy, this is a form of actually expressing your own disgust and your own conflict maybe, and even your own criticism of a certain topic. So I think here it would have been much better that instead of reacting the way we did, we know that the Hebdo bombings that took place in Norway, and people were killed regarding these cartoons. Again, this is not the right way. And if anything that you should do is to ignore them, that is the best way. But to retaliate in any way is absolutely uncalled for.
और डॉक्टर साहब यहाँ काहिर खुदा के जो सिफ्त है, ये उर्दू वाला काहिर और ये इसमें ये एक जैसे हैं
No.
या डिफरेंट है?
No. So you see, in the Arabic language, Kahir means someone who has total control, someone who cannot be in any way, I mean, you cannot bypass that person. So Qahirun ala ibadihi means that God is in total control. It is not that people can go to other deities and convince them against God. He has every power over every single person. So it expresses the power and control of the Almighty. In the Urdu language, of course, Qahr or Kahir has a slightly different nuance, and it relates more to anger and to I would say frenzy in a negative sense.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Siddiqa, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
My question is from verse 63 about being saved from distress and people making promises and saying, if you do this, I will do this. My question relates to the verse plus with the current things I see in the society. A lot of people will say, oh Allah, please help me pass this. Let me get this job. And if I get this job, I'm going to feed 100 people. I personally find that quite counterintuitive to being sincere to God. Am I off, or how would you explain that?
Yes, I think although the Quran has mentioned vows mean that you make a promise that if something, a wish that you made maybe, or a desire that you express, if it comes true, then as a result of that you'll do some good deeds. It's like making conditional, doing a good deed conditional upon a certain outcome. And the Prophet, in my knowledge, never adopted this way, and the Sahaba also never adopted this way. And the right way is actually to implore God, to beg Him, to of course present your petition to Him. And when it comes, I mean, if your petition is heard and you feel that God has done what you expected Him to do, and something happens according to your expectations, then it should be a spontaneous reaction on your part. On that occasion, you can thank God by maybe feeding 1,000 people, or maybe just praying to Him, or maybe doing any other good deed as a expression of your gratitude. So basically, it's that gratitude that needs to come out, and instead of making it a mechanical thing in which you are making it conditional, the right way would be that if your wish is fulfilled, if your dua has been heard, then you express gratitude to God spontaneously in any way that comes to your mind on that occasion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Siddiqa, do you have any follow-ups, or are you good?
I do, please. I just have one more question if there's no one else. The other question I have is relating to verse 65 about division and conflict, with the increasing disunity within the Muslim communities and within families even. Would this verse be a warning?
Verse 65. It says, "Kul huwal qadir ala an yab'asa alaykum azaban min fawqikum wa min tahti arjulikum." No, this is a very specific verse. So you see, this is, I mean, they were demanding that a sign of punishment be shown to them. And in response, it is said that God has full control. The Prophet is saying, I have no say in these matters, but He can do so, and He can send whatever you're asking for from the top of your head, like in the form of any tempest or a storm, and He can do so from the bottom of your feet or below your feet in the form of an earthquake or any other disruption, or He can make you taste the power of one another. Unzur kayfa nusarriful ayat. So this is something which is related to the Quraysh or the adversaries of the Prophet, that they are demanding this punishment. The Prophet says, I don't have any authority to send this punishment. It is God's prerogative. He can do so at any time. And before that happens, you have still the time to pay heed. So this has a very specific context.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question that we have is a very long one, but it's related to the verses, so I want to ask it in its entirety. So, because today we talked about how God maintains absolute control over everything, what is this nature of absolute control? A few sessions earlier, you mentioned that the concept of qadr doesn't mean that things have been predestined. It simply means that God knows everything that has to happen. But if God is not an absentee God, then his constant control and interference in matters of daily life or matters that span over centuries, such as the decline or rise of nations, also continues. So if someone falls ill or fails at a business or a relationship, or the nations rising and falling, is this all because of God's handiwork where he's testing us, or is it failure in our part? So how can we say that all of the good or bad comes from God? This is very confusing, especially if it's said that nothing is predestined.
You see, you have to make this distinction. The verses and the passage that we have studied has been specifically addressed to the Prophet's nation, and they are being told that you think that there are other deities who have control over you. You are mistaken. It is God who has control over you. So this control is being mentioned in contrast to the belief of the addressees who thought that there are other people also who have control. I mean, we can go to other deities and we can and these deities can intercede before God for them. So God is telling them that there is no one else except me. I have control over my creation. If you have to say something, it's me, not your deity. So everything that has been said here has been said in the background of these polytheistic mindsets which these people had. As far as action and of course predestination, or as we say in philosophy, determinism and fatalism, that the concepts of determinism and fatalism are concerned, I think I've explained them on many occasions that nothing has been predestined. It is a wrong thing to believe that there is something that there is a predestiny that we have, which in the sense that God is controlling what we are doing. That is absolutely, I would say, not even discussable, because then there would be no point in testing people. People can only be tried and tested when they have freedom in their own right, and they can choose right and wrong. So yes, there is a point here that, for example, we are in certain respects not given any freedom. For example, I don't have a choice where I am born. I don't have a choice in which country I am born. I don't have a choice in which era I am born. So these are the choices I don't have. But then again, I am not going to be questioned on these choices. I'm going to be questioned on my freedom, where I have that freedom, and that freedom is going to earn me whatever I deserve. And it's not that God is driving me. He's not controlling me in the sense that he is telling me what to do. No, I'm free to do whatever I like. But whatever I'm going to do is in his knowledge. This is just one small thing that you need to understand, that we do things out of our own free, sweet will and wish. We do it because of our selection. And that is why we become worthy of trial and being punished or rewarded. However, what is going to be actually a choice is foreknown to God, something which is in his foreknowledge, that I'm going to go this or I'm going to do that. I'll do that with my own choice, but whatever I'll do is in his knowledge. So if you are just able to understand this, it's not going to be any something difficult for you to understand that you are the master of your own destiny. You can shape your own future, but whatever future you shape is already known to God. Why is it that he is making us undergo this? So that when he rewards us and punishes us, he does not do it merely on the basis of his knowledge. He can prove to us by just flashing our life before us and telling us that if you are being rewarded, this is what you had done. And if you are being punished, this was your conduct. So it's like letting us know ultimately that what we deserve is because we have earned it. He could have just consigned us to hell or heaven on the basis of his knowledge, because he already knows which person is going to do good and which person is not going to do good. He could have done this without, making us go through this whole process. But then people could have asked that why have we been given this punishment or this reward? So in order to make them realize that it's not just my knowledge that has made you stand here, it is because you deserve this through your own deeds that you are landed here. So I think this is something that we have to understand.
They have a follow-up to their question. They ask, Surah Kahf shows that God is involved in seemingly small matters, and then at other place God says that he has decided to give different nations rise turn by turn. It means that God's work is ongoing in big and small matters. So the person asking says that they don't mean that God controls our decisions. They mean that God does control our circumstances, whether they're big or small.
Yes, there is no doubt about that. Controlling circumstances is absolutely different. I mean, to make something happen and not allow it to happen is something which God's will does. It takes its role. I mean, that is what God is all about. He does not let certain intentions to materialize. People might think of killing someone, but they are hampered or they are somehow stopped from it by circumstances. In other circumstances, people would like to do something and they are not able to do good. So you see, this is what God does. But what we have to understand is that He in no way controls our deeds. So the examples that you refer to in Surah Kahf are entirely different. They just show that if you find something against wisdom, to our own wisdom, don't just think that it does not have any wisdom in the sight of God. There are things that we might think as if they are great injustices, but if you look at it from another angle, you'll find it to have great wisdom. So the whole episode that is mentioned in Surah Kahf, there are 3 incidents mentioned there. Each of these incidents show that Moses was severely dissatisfied with what Khidr, the angel, did. But when he was explained that the angel took the life of a child because the child would grow up to become a nuisance for his parents and the parents were given a new child, it was to tell, of course, and divulge this information that at times you might think that something bad has happened. A child has died in infancy. And you don't know that that infant was, of course, someone who was innocent at that time, but he would grow up to become a nuisance. So at times when things happen, you think that something bad has happened, but there's some greater wisdom hidden in it, and so on and so forth for the other 2 examples. So they cannot be, I think, in any way cited to prove that God is controlling our decisions in any way. Yes, his interference in circumstances is very much there. But remember that interference of circumstances is something that will always be accounted for when we are held accountable before Him. For example, if we intended to do something bad, but God did not allow it to happen, so our own intention would be, that would be penalized. Similarly, if we wanted to do something good, but circumstances hampered us, we will be rewarded for that. So you see, in that case, circumstances do have a role, but that compensation of things happening or not happening will always be there.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem, for that clarification. Since we're still on the topic, I'm going to take the follow-up question from somebody else related to the circumstances and Allah's control over them. So they asked that if related to Allah's control over your circumstances, if He decided a poor childhood for you, then is it not Allah setting you up for failure in the future? For example, one of their friends endured extreme childhood trauma, which led them to have a low self-esteem and a complete rejection of the concept of God. She says that if God did exist, she would consider Him completely evil, given her involuntary suffering as a child, which now profoundly shapes her life and worldview. How does Allah's justice account for a situation that seems to predetermine the belief and consequently her placement in hell?
So you see, this is one of the greatest and the most confounding questions that man has ever faced. If you look at history, if you look at philosophy, if you look at man's quest for the truth, reconciling the mercy of God with the misery on planet Earth is the fundamental question that has led people either towards God or away from God. So the question is that how can a merciful God allow misery the way we see it? And the way you have described that your childhood friend suffered a trauma in her childhood and that actually led her away from God is something which is pretty understandable if you are not able to reconcile the misery of God with His mercy. And the formula which the Quran has actually expressed or divulged to us in order to understand is that, you see, if you think that this world is all that there is, then of course this is a tremendous amount of injustice that has been meted out. But if you think that this world is a trial and you are to undergo this trial, and if you undergo this trial in a patient way, being grateful to God for His blessings, then the suffering that you have gone through is going to be compensated in such a immeasurable way, in such an unfathomable way that you'll be totally drenched with God's mercy. It's just a question of waiting for that time, and you lose sense of the misery that you went through because of the tremendous compensation that you'd be given. So you see, we have to understand that the miseries which God effects on the planet Earth, the miseries, the trials, the adversities, the tribulation that we go through, they have a purpose, and the purpose is to test our mettle and to see how we behave in the face of adversity. If we are able to pass through these adversities with patience, perseverance, counting our blessings, still thinking that we have so many other things going in our favor. Yes, there are certain things that are not in our favor, but then those are the things that we have to really look in the eye, stare in the eye, take them as a challenge, and not get bogged down. So if you take life to be a challenge, if you take life to be a test and a trial, and refuse to lose, then you will understand that this misery is just a very small step to make you acquire the immeasurable treasure of heaven. It's just a question of understanding that you are going through a transitory period, maybe 50 or 60 years of life in which there are trials, and there could be immense trials. But then a life which is infinite, which is eternal, which is not going to end, awaits you, in which you will have everything that you wish for. So you see, if you start comparing what you will gain from going through this suffering and from actually passing through these tough times, you then have the patience and the perseverance to bear that agony for that short while to earn eternal pleasure.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Nadia, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead. We can hear you. You're muted.
Okay, so can you hear me now? Okay. So my question is, raising as a child and looking at living in Pakistan, and
Sorry,
I've been
Nadia, I'm sorry to cut you off. Is this related to our topic today?
yes, it is related to our topic. It's regarding the manat kind of things, and I think somebody mentioned earlier about nafal and ibadat and all that. So I've seen this in Pakistan, a very common term that nafal pad lena or Quran khatam karwana. Is it not right? One thing. The second thing is, you said that destined, everything man whatever does is because of their own deeds and stuff like that, but isn't it mentioned that the day of birth and the day of death and the way you'll die is all written by God?
So I'm going to answer your second question first. So what I was saying was that the area in which we will be held accountable is the area in which we have freedom. That was what we were talking about. The time of death, the time of coming into this world is predestined. But this is an area in which we will not be questionable or held accountable before God. So you see, I have just referred to this earlier as well. The country in which we are going to born, the time that we are going to born, the age that we have, all is something which is predetermined. But you see, that is not an area in which we will be questioned or held accountable. We are talking about accountability. Our accountability will be only in that area in which we have a freedom for choice. And the answer to your first question is to make vows or to pray optional nafils as people do has absolutely, is not something which is in resonance with the Prophet's own life. You'll not find it ever the Sahaba doing it, the Prophet doing it, or the Quran mentioning it. So making a vow, although it has been mentioned in the Quran that a vow is like an oath, once you make it, you must fulfill it. But it was never the custom and the tradition of the Prophet to make vows that if certain thing happens, then I'm going to do such and such good deeds in response. This was not how the Prophet led his life. Yes, we find the mention of vows and mannats in the times of the Jahiliyyah, in pre-Islamic times, and people used to do that. But it was discouraged or not adopted by the Prophet. So the best way to thank God, as I said earlier on, is to leave it to the time when something happens in which your wish is fulfilled. Let it be spontaneous. If you feel that something good has happened, wait for that time. When it happens, whatever feeling that you have is going to express itself. It could be by helping someone, it could be by contributing someone, it could be by just prostrating before God. So there are several outcomes that manifest themselves when you feel happy. So when you feel fulfilled, when you have that sense of fulfillment, let that come out of you spontaneously instead of making a condition. So we're going to start off with the literal and idiomatic translation now. Verse 56. Qul, say, inni, I, nuhitu, have been stopped, an, from, a'buda, worship, allazina, those who, tad'una, you invoke or you beseech, min dunillahi, besides God. So I have been stopped from worshipping those whom you beseech besides God. Qul, say, la, not, attabeo, I follow, ahwa'akum, your desires. So tell them that I am not going to follow your desires. Qad, indeed, zalaltu, go astray, izan, if I did. So the previous verse says that I am not going to follow your desires, and if I did, qad zalaltu, I would be led astray. Wa, and, ma, not, ana, I, minal muhtadeen, among the guided. So if I do so, then I will not be among the guided, and I would be one who has gone astray. Qul, say, inni, I, ala, upon, bayyina, clear argument, min Rabbi, from my Lord, wa, and, kazzabtum, you have denied, bihi, it. So say, I am on a clear argument from my Lord, and you have denied it. Ma, not, in thee, with me, ma, what? Tastajiluna bihi, you hasten. So with me is not what you hasten. That is literally the meaning. Otherwise, idiomatically, it means I do not have what you are demanding me or what you are hastening from me, which means that you are demanding that the punishment should be sent, but I don't have it with me. In other words, I do not have authority about it. Inil hukmu illa lillah, in, not, al hukm, the directive, illa, except, lillah, with God. So the directive of this or the verdict of this rests with God. In other words, sending punishment or a sign for punishment rests with Him. I don't have any authority over it. Yaqussul haq, He alone shall explain the truth. Yaqussul haq, He shall explain the truth. Wa, and, huwa, He, khair, best, al-fasilin, judges or decider. Yaqussul haq, He will explain the truth, and He is the best of judges, or He is the best of those who give verdict. Qul, say, law, if, anna, that, in thee, with me, ma tasta'jiluna bihi, what you hasten, laquziya al-amr, the matter would have been decided, baini, between me, wa, and, bainakum, between you. So what is being said here is that, say, if I had with me what you are hastening for, the matter would have been decided between me and between you. Wallahu, and Allah, a'lamu, knows best, bizzalimin, the unjust, and God knows best the unjust. Wa, and, indahu, with Him, mafatihul ghaib, the keys of the unseen. So mafatih is the plural of miftah. Miftah means a key, and mafatih is the plural. So with Him are the keys of the unknown. La, not, ya'lamuha, knows them, illa, except, huwa, He. Only He knows them. Only He knows the secrets of the heavens or the unseen. Wa, and, ya'lamu, knows, ma, that, fil bar, in the land, wa, and, al-bahr, in the sea. So He knows what is in the land, ma fil bar, wal bahr, and in the sea, wa, and, ma, not, tasqutu, drops, min waraqatin, a leaf, illa, except, ya'lamuha, in His knowledge. So there is not a leaf which drops on the earth except that it is in the knowledge of God. Wala habbatin, or even a seed, fi zulumatil ard, in the depth of the earth, in the darkness of the earth. Wa, and, la ratbin, anything which is wet. Wa and la not. Yabisin, anything which is dry. Illa except. Fi in. Kitabin book. Mubin open. So idiomatically it would be that there is not a leaf which falls. وَمَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا, except that he knows it. وَلَا حَبَّةٍ فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْأَرْضِ, nor a seed or a grain in the darkness of the earth that he knows. وَلَا رَتْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ, and not something dry or wet, except that it is written in an open book. In other words, it is something which is clearly known to him. You should not think that these things are not known to him. Wa and huwa, he, allazi who, yatawaffakum, gives you death, bil layl, at night. Wa and ya'lamu, knows, ma, that, jarahtum bin nahar, you do by the day. So it is he who gives you death by the night, and it is he who knows what you do in the day. Thumma, after that, yab'athukum, he is going to resurrect you, fihe, in it. He is going to raise you up in it. Liyuqza, so that is completed. Ajulum musamma, allotted span of life. So you are going to be raised up in that day, so that the time that has been allotted for you is completed. In other words, what is being said is that he gives you death at night, and then he knows what you do during the day, and then Subma yab'athukum fihi, then you are raised in the day, which means that you get up in the day so that you complete your lifespan. Summa, then, ilayhi, towards him. Marji'ukum is your return. Thumma, then, yunabbi'ukum, he is going to inform you. Bima, of, kuntum, you, ta'malun, were doing. Then he is going to inform you about what you were doing. Wa and huwa, he, al-qahir, control, fawqa, upon, ibadihi, his servants, and he has control over his servants. Wa and yursilu, he deputes, alaikum, upon you, hafaza, guardians, and he deputes guardians upon you. Hatta, until, iza, when, ja'a, comes, ahadukum, any one of you, al-maut, death. Tawaffathu, claims him. Rusuluna are messengers, of course referring to the angels. Until when death of anyone approaches him, tawaffathu rusuluna, his soul is claimed by our messengers. Wahum, wa, and hum, they, la, not, yufarritun, in any way indifferent or negligent. So these rusul, these angels, are in no way negligent of the task that is assigned to them. Summa, then, ruddu, they are returned, ilallah, towards God, Mawlahumul haq, who is their true Lord. Mawlahum, their Lord, al-haq, the true Lord. Allah, beware, lahul hukm, the authority belongs to him. Wahuwa, and he, asra, the fastest, hasibin, in taking account, and he is the fastest in taking account. Kul, say, man, who, yunajjikum, give you deliverance or delivers you, min zulumatil bar, from the darkness of the land, wal bahr, and the sea. Tad'unahu, you call upon him, tadarru'an, beseechingly, wa, and khufya, privately. So you call upon him imploringly or beseechingly and in private. And what do you say? La in anjana, if he saved us. La in, if, anjana, he saved us, or God saved us, min, from, hazihi, of course referring to this calamity. From this calamity, lanakunanna, we will become, minash shakirin, amongst those who are grateful. We will become amongst those who are grateful. Qul, say, Allah, God, yunajjikum, make you deliver, minha, from it, wa, and min, from, kulle, every, karbin, problem, summa, antum, you, tushrikun, associate with him. So say, Allahu yunajjikum minha, God is going to save you from that calamity and from every other problem. وَمِن كُلِّ كَرْبٍ, from every other hardship, from every other problem. But what will happen is ثُمَّ أَنْتُمْ تُشْرِكُونَ, you will again start to associate partners with Him. قُل, say, Huwa, He, Al-Qadir, He has control, ala, upon, an, that, yab'asa alaykum, He sends upon you, azaban, punishment, min, from, fawqikum, above you, aw, or, min tahti, from below, arjulikum, your feet. So tell them that He has power to send His punishment from above you and from below your feet. Aw, or, yalbisakum, shi'an, or He makes you divide, or He makes you divide into factions, He divides you into factions. Wayuzika, and He makes you taste, ba'dakum, some of you, ba'sabaz, the power of others. So what happens is that He can either send torment from above your head or from below your feet, or yalbisakum shi'a, He can make you engage, or He can divide you into various groups. And then the result would be yuziqa, you will taste, ba'dakum ba'sabas, some of you will be tasting the power of the other. Of course, referring to the fact that you will become entangled and fight with one another. Unzur, look. Kaifa, how. Nusarrifu, we send. Al-ayat, our signs or our revelations. La'allahum, so that they, yafqahun, understand. Look how we send our verses or how we send our revelations so that they understand. Wa kazzaba bihi, wa, and kazzaba bihi, rejected this warning. Qawmuka, your nation. Wa, and huwa, it, al-haq, the truth. So your people, they denied this warning of ours, even though it was the truth. Wahuwa al-haq. Qul, say, lasto, not, I am not, alaykum, upon you, bivakil, someone who can force you, or am a keeper. So tell them, I am not someone who is going to force you. Likulle, for every, naba'in, event, mustaqar, a time fixed. For every event is a time fixed. Wa, and, sawfa, soon, ta'lamun, you will know. So for every event, the time is fixed and soon you will know. Wa, and, iza, when, ra'aita, you see, allazina, those who, yakhuduna, fi ayatina, who criticize our revelations, fa'ariz anhum, a'riz, ignored, anhum, them, hatta, until, yakhudu, they enter, fi hadithin, in conversation, ghairihi, which is different. So when you see people criticizing our revelations, you leave them alone until they converse in some other way, or they enter in some other conversation. Wa, and, imma, if, yunsiyannaka, makes you forget, ash-shaitan, Satan. And if Satan makes you forget, fa, therefore, la, not, taq'ud, sit, ba'da zikra, after you are reminded, ma'a, with, al-qawm, nation, al-zalimeen, unjust. So when Satan makes you forget this, do not sit with these unjust people once you are reminded. Wa, and, ma, not, ala, upon, allazina, those who, yattaquna, fear God, min hisabihim, about His responsibility, min shay, anything. So those who fear God are in no way responsible for the accountability in anywhere. So in other words, they are not accountable for these people in any way. Wala, kin, but, zikra, reminder, la'allahum, so that they, yattaqun, become pious. So wama 'ala allazina yattaquna min hisabihim min shay would mean that the God conscious or the pious people are not accountable for these people. Ma alayhim min hisab, they don't have any accountability, min shay'in, in the slightest way. And what do they have? Except that they should remind them. لعلهم, so that they yattaqun, become pious. Wa, and zar, leave, allazina, those, ittakhazu, who have held, dinahum, their religion, laiba, as a sport, wa, and lahwa, as an enjoyment. So leave alone those people who have made your religion a sport or an entertainment. Wa, and gharrathum, deceive them, al hayatud dunya, the life of this world. Wazakkir bihi, and remind them, an tubsala, and remind them through the Quran actually, that a person, as a punishment of his misdeeds, an tubsala nafsum bima kasabat, is going to be consigned to destruction, bima, about, kasabat, he earned. So remind them that a person, as punishment of his misdeeds, what he has earned, tubsala nafsun, is not consigned to construction. It's not, I mean, what is being said here, as you can see from the previous verse, is that you should keep reminding through this Quran, so that what happens is that a person is not consigned to destruction with what he earns. So basically, as you can see, is Allah tubsala, which means that he is not consigned to his destruction. Laysa laha min dunillahi, and not for him, min dunillahi, except God, waliyun, any helper, wa, and la, not shafi, or any intercessor. So there is no one from him who can be his helper or his intercessor. Wa, and in, if ta'dil, offers, kulla adlin, if you offer any ransom, if he offers, and I'm sorry, it's not you offer, it's he offers, but in ta'dil kulla adlin la yu'khaz minha, and if that person offers every ransom or any ransom, any amount of ransom, la, not, yu'khaz, will be taken, minha, from him. So any amount of ransom that he offers will not be taken from him. Ulaika, these, allazina, those who, ublisu, were consigned to destruction, bima, because of, kasabu, what they earned. So they were consigned to destruction because of what they earned. Lahum, for them, sharabun, drink, min hamim, that is boiling. So for them is going to be a drink that is going to be boiling. Wa, and azabun, a punishment. Alimun, a very grave punishment. Bima, because kanu, they were, yakfuruna, denying. So for them is going to be boiling water and a very grave punishment because of what they had been denying. So now we have finished this idiomatic and literal session as well. And if you have any questions, please you can go on with them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Our first question asks, what if you know that reminding someone to return to Allah will fall on deaf ears, so choose to not remind them? Will you gain sins for the remainder of your life for staying quiet? And then also, what if you're a non-confrontational person and you're too scared to say anything?
You see, it just you have to understand that you have to choose your moment and opportunity. And if you think that you may have an impact on people and you still don't use your influence, then that is something that could be questionable. And that is what the Quran has said, that you speak when you think that your speech is going to make an effect. If you think that speaking is not going to affect the other person, that person is not going to listen to you, or maybe not in the mood, or maybe is in a position that he's just going to snub you, then you're not responsible for that. But if in your estimation you think that you can make an impact, you can maybe have an impact on that person, then choosing a time and opportunity is something that you should do and give it a try.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Asif, please go ahead.
Yes, my question pertains to verse 65. Which says, "Qul huwa al-qadiru ala an yab'asa alaykum azaban min fawqikum aw min tahti arjulakum aw yalbisakum shi'an wa yuzika ba'sakum ba'sa ba'as." So in this context, do you think the events that happened in early Muslim history, starting right from the assassination of Osman and then culminating into division of the Muslim community at that time. And their do you think this is the manifestation of these verses?
I mean, you see, these verses have no connection with what happened. What happened is something that we all know. This is just telling us that if God wanted, He could have done this. If God wanted, He could have sent a torment from above your heads and from below your feet, or He could have divided into factions and then made you taste the power of one another. This is how He could have done. Whether He did this or not, of course, relates to the immediate addressees of the prophets only, the addressees who are in front of them. What happened later on in Islamic history is not something which is being discussed here. What is being said is that, O Prophet, your nation, if they are demanding a sign, then I have the power to send them the sign of punishment. It could be from above their heads, it could be from below their feet, and it could be simply without these two. I could just make them into various factions, and then they're going to fight with one another and taste one another's wrath, and then they'll realize that they're doing something wrong. So you see, this is just mentioning a potential thing in the times of Prophet that could have happened, but we know that it never happened, and most of his nation, they accepted faith. Very few people did not accept faith and they were punished. So this is an entirely different context.
But these verses, I mean, so no doubt these are during the times of the Prophet, but the verses, they stay during the rest of, during the subsequent periods as well. So I am from that angle.
What I'm saying is that these verses have no bearing on what has happened later on, because they are consistently and persistently and concisely being directed towards the addressees of the Prophet who were alive at that time. They have no, impact on later generations. So we have been discussing this, that the Quran has specifically said that in the prophetic era, the immediate addressees of a Rasul, they are punished in this world for their misdemeanor or rewarded for their good demeanor. So this relates to the law of Risala, which means that the law which is mentioned regarding the messengers of God, that is something that we have to understand. We just cannot extend every verse to other eras unless the verse from inside itself tells us that it can go beyond that. This context is very, very specific. It cannot be moved beyond the era of the Prophet himself.
If it's the same question that's in the chat.
This question relates to, as per your understanding, and you many a time said that innocence of the prophets, that means Allah keeps them error-free in matters of the capture of Wahi and its transmission to his addressees. And in case of the last prophet to the rest of the mankind, that means in case of the last prophet, transmission of the Wahi, that's Quran and the Sunnah, to the later generations was the responsibility of the Sahaba in the first instance, and then later the other Muslims in the subsequent generations. But we know Allah gave no such immunity of being error-free in terms of transmission of the religion. Then how can we confidently say that the Wahi was transmitted error-free in its original and pure form to us through the later generations?
Because the methodology that was adopted, or God made us to adopt it, was that generations transmitted something either through their practice or through their own voice and sound. So the Quran was transmitted vocally, and the Sunnah was transmitted through our perpetual adherence to certain practices. And it's not just a few people who did that. It was generations after generations. For example, every person in the generation of the Prophet transmitted something to the next generation, and then the same next generation transmitted the same thing to the next generation. So this is like the transmission of language, an example that might help you in understanding how these things become absolutely certain. The way language is transmitted is an example of how certitude is obtained by a generation to generation transfer, which in technical terms is also called tawatur. So tawatur means perpetual transmission, that everyone is transmitting the same thing. So for example, if you look at a language, we know languages are coined, and then they travel, the words travel with their meanings, and these meanings are are, I mean, they are unanimously adopted. No one will have a different sense of a meaning. For example, the word desk or a word table or a lamp or whatever words we use, not only the words themselves, they are transmitted by perpetual adherence, but also the meanings. So, in a similar way, the Quran and the Sunnah were transmitted in a generation to generation manner. It was not that a few people transmitted a few things. It was a perpetual concurrence that happened. And if you look at history, you'll see that this perpetual concurrence was there ever since the times of the Prophet right up to today. And you can trace it back in every era.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. We have a couple of off-topic questions. The first one is, when does Maghrib time end?
It ends as soon as Isha starts.
Thank you. The next question asks, I've heard falling into despair is a major sin, but isn't that against human nature? It's a natural and human emotional response to negative events. As long as you remain in it temporarily, it shouldn't be a sin since you can't control your emotions. And also,
Yes.
is harboring resentment towards Allah in that temporary despair a major sin too?
So, firstly, to be in despair is not a sin at all. It's to remain perpetually in a state of despair is something that we should be wary of and should be worried of. Otherwise, we are humans. How can we not fall into despair? As humans, we do encounter this situation, and that as long as we immediately come out of it or realize that this is like a temporary thing, it should work for us. And as far as having resentment for God in that moment of despair is concerned, that too could be understandable as long as you come out of that resentment.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Okay, one more on topic question. This one asks, you said that a person's going to be held accountable for their intention. However, the Quran says that you will be judged according to your actions. Can you clarify what that means? Because a person is tempted daily and even makes intention to committing a sin, but never acts on it. So how will someone be punished for their intention?
So you see, when the Quran says that you'll be punished for your deeds, that is one area in which the Quran has said something. So there are other areas in which we know that the Quran has given this inclination that if you are not able to do certain things that you intended, but you had the will to do that, you'll be given the reward of that. For example, if a person wanted to do Hajj, and he did not have the means, for example, he was not well, he did not have the wealth, or he did not have the strength to travel, but he had this immense desire to offer Hajj, then he will get the reward of that Hajj. So if this is true, then conversely, if a person had something bad planned and it could not materialize, then we cannot say that he'll not be definitely allowed to go scot-free. He may be forgiven, but then this is something that God is going to hold against him, and he may or may not forgive him. Again, that would depend on the situation.
So this question asks, my friend got kicked out of the Quran class because he refuses to cut his long hair, and they said it was because he was imitating a woman, and that's haram. Are they correct?
I would not go by this. I think we should not comment on a person's appearance, whatever the appearance, whatever the apparel. If a person is willing to listen to the Quran, if he is willing to understand the Quran, I think we should concentrate more on this instead of looking at his appearance, because this is something that is going to maybe change later on. And we should not make it a condition that unless you have properly trimmed your hair, you should come and attend such a gathering. And even for that, I would think that this is such a minor thing that in no way should should no way even figure in stopping a person from attending a Quran class. I would certainly have my strong reservation that this should not have been done.
Thank you very much. The next question asks, related to that, is long hair on men haram?
I would not say so, because you see, it depends what you are doing. There are certain things that now have become a norm. There was a time and culture in which imitating the opposite gender by having long hair was something that could be understood. But today it's no longer so, because men have long hairs in such vast quantities that when they keep long hair, their purpose is not to imitate women, Their purpose is to, just conduct themselves in a different way, and they like long hair. You see, what has been forbidden, and that too in Hadith literature, is that you should not try to do things which are specifically meant for women. And these specifically meant for women things, they keep changing with time. And they reflect this mentality that you are not satisfied with your own gender and you would like to copy your own gender. You're not, in other words, satisfied with the scheme of God. So it is in that context that people do certain things. So remember, these things can change with time. These things can have a different manifestation in a time. For example, there are men or boys who wear a single earring, and they don't wear an earring in the other ear. So I would not say that this they do out of imitation or any other thing. It's just a means of decorating themselves. So things, they have to be understood in their context. It's not always about imitation. Only when it is about imitating the opposite gender, and when the society clearly knows that when you do a certain act, then this is an act of imitating the opposite gender, should it become a cause of concern.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem, for another wonderful session.